José, for your crisp presentation. It indeed highlighted the main compartments and components of this important WHO model. The next part of this session is discussions, and we have time till 3:30. We see how far we come, because I think 3:30 is quite some time away, but it helps us to maybe also that you have some questions that you wanted to ask and didn't get the time for before lunch. So let's see that we can cover most of your questions up to now, but let's start with the last session, especially from Joanna and José and Dr. Nazi, that we cover their presentations first. Are there any questions or issues for clarification? Please. I see a finger there. Do we have a mic, please?
I think the sound system is not as strong as it
my friend wants that I must appreciate more loudly to our Saudi Arabia. It was a very good role model that we have seen, and I was suggesting that this must be circulated to the all member countries, and because this was a very good developed model, and the other countries are also in the phase of whether development of the rules or the implementation phases. So I think this will be very helpful, and I would add to that, along with the organizational structure, if you can provide that, that will be certainly helpful in also designing the organization structure as well. As I was a little earlier discussing, it's rather a unique technology and also different from the pharmaceutical other products. And here I find that the three kind of professionals are uniting here. One is previously, like in case of drugs, usually the doctors and the pharmacists were there, but here we have a biomedical engineers as well. So we have to make this combination, in fact, at every step of this regulation development and enforcement. So only then we can have good results. My question regarding the presentation from HWAP was the introduction of HS code. I think this is not been practiced by the other international countries, USFD or EU, but here we can find only in the Asian regional countries the HS code incorporation, which is rather for the tariff considerations, especially for customers other, and that will be complicating this issue. It is good enough that 9018 is the HS code for the medical devices, but if you go in more details, then there will be every size, dimension change and physical parameters will create another HS code. And if the regulators take that HS code with the complete detail, then every different size and dimension will require a separate registration. So that will be a very big, not only volume of work, but also practically very difficult and will be very, very costly as well. So I think this will be against the harmonization principles. So we need to take care of that. Finally, the last speaker has spoken very well. We have to take the maximum advantage available. But we must confess here that the industry and technology is much ahead of regulators. And as now the regulators has coming up with taking care of the patients. Of course, this is the patient perspective, the safety of the patients we have to ensure. So that's why we have to develop the capabilities as well, not only at the regulatory frameworks, but also at the international bodies like WHO and others, where we can find more and more technical experts, specifically on the subjects. So finally, the goals that you have last two shown, I think they were beautifully describing the concept. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this elaborate question. Maybe we take it as it is so that we do not get it lost. Maybe, Joanna, can you?
I'll take the part about the HS code. Can you hear me? Well, actually, the mention of the HS code is a suggestion for new emerging countries to use it as a first line of grouping of devices for custom clearance. HS codes cannot be added on by any national regulator. I think it's a World Trade Organization harmonization code, which but they have a series, and with the descriptions, the different types of devices will use this code and so on and so forth. And if you have really in your country nothing to base on, look at that, because it's already existing for many years, and use that as a base for maybe some classification. In Singapore, we use the HS code because we do a lot of trade. And what we had done when we implemented the regulations was to pick up certain HS codes, and we also have the medical device registry that had all the different medical devices registered in Singapore. And we helped the companies when they do a custom clearance to say, if you have this product codes, this is the HS code you should use, and so on and so forth. And we took many months to put together this, and we worked with our customs agency so that when the freight forwarders declare, they use that HS code that we had recommended, and they would be actually automatically cleared if they filled in two other fields, which is that they have an establishment license, and also that they have the product code that is listed in our register. So we will have an automatic clearance. But the suggestion of using the HS code in my slide was for countries that don't have that database as yet to look. There are already some very basic forms of classification using the HS code. So that was the reason why it was brought up. Have I answered your question, sir?
International, this is the tariff for the customs.
That's right.
So like drugs, we don't use that.
That's
Although all the drugs are imported through the HS code.
That's right.
Like for example, for finished drugs it is 30,
That's right.
and for this is 9018. This is the first part of the HS code. The second part of the HS code goes into the details.
That's right.
But if the regulatory authority keep the drug classification based on HS code, then for every dimension they will be requiring another registration. So that will complicate the work. That was my question. Maybe, for example, the ISO, will define a cardiac stent. So all the specification according to that ISO standard may be more easy to follow. And that will also uniform the requirement throughout the globe.
Just for clarifying again, the HS code is not the code that you would want to look at to say that this is for your medical device, but the classifications, the descriptions that come under the HS code could be your cluster of devices that you could cluster them in. That's all that is used. It's just to be used as a guideline. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Josie?
I couldn't agree more that we would need some more technical expertise on medical devices at WHO. And I think we are just starting now. And there are a few people in pre-qualification of IVDs. There's Adriana, and there's some interns, and there's me, and that's about it on medical devices. If you compare to vaccines and medicines, and people who are familiar with WHO, they know there are expert committees, and there are experts on biosimilars and vaccines and blood products at WHO, and there are none for medical devices. That's not unique, because most standards are developed by ISO, and for medicines and biosimilars, I listed it some time ago, there are about 800 technical guidances for pharmaceuticals. So what we would need is you as member states supporting the initiative to make also the medical devices stronger in that aspect, although I also acknowledge that we never ever, WHO never ever would be able to develop all the standards for medical devices, but we find a balance there. Thank you.
Dr. Nazi?
Yes, thank you for your kind words. It's a pleasure having you all over here. By the way, we're distributing a CD outside, SFDA CD. It has all our interim law, implementing rules, guidances, and inshallah when we have these, when you have you at Saudi FDA after tomorrow, we will have detailed workshops for every department, every program. We'll show you all our systems. We will give you all the information you will need, inshallah. We are here, our objective is to help as much as we can, to share knowledge and experience as much as we can, and hopefully collectively we may have our own collaboration as different countries in on our own harmonization body, all together maybe with AHWP or any other group that is working for the same cause.
Thank you very much for your clarification. We have a question from the women's side, please.
Yes, I'm Engineer Nada from Bahrain, Engineering Safety Advisor from National Healthcare Regularity Authority. I have, thank you for your effort and your information that you're providing. I have a question to Dr. Nazih to gain from Saudi FDA experience. I'll be very quick. It's only 3 questions. How do you deal with personal use medical devices? How do you regulate them from the importation perspective? And I didn't get the difference between authorization, market holder, and the distributor, because for us they're both the same, but you have different regulation for each one of them. And when you said classification of medical devices, like the one that are medical device under the name of medical devices or not, are you using a system or you're doing it manually? Thank you.
Regarding devices for personal use, we have a guidance on our website that people need to, anyone who's bringing a device for personal use, there is a guidance for us and there is a process for applying for a license towards that. It's not as comprehensive as other people bringing it for market authorization. Now, the other thing you mentioned, I didn't get the second question.
The difference between marketing authorization holder, the first license is to get a marketing authorization holder, and the second one you said for a distributor.
Yes,
like
okay.
Each one is, yeah.
Okay, so to summarize, every importer, distributor, local manufacturer must have an establishment license before they work in medical devices. So they have to submit a file that represents the qualifications related to their establishments, that they have proper storage system, they have a quality system, they have qualifications of people who can run this business. This is for medical device establishment licensing. The MIDMA the market authorization is given for an equipment. So the technical file for a market authorization is specifically for the equipment. The audit report, where is it registered? Actually, no device can be given a market authorization unless it is authorized to be marketed in one of 5 countries: United States, Canada, Europe, Japan, and Australia. So everyone is required to present a proof that their device is marketed in these countries, plus some other technical documents associated with the equipment, not with the establishment. Is it
all by one name, like one agent, right? Both of them can be
authorized representative. The authorized representative brings this technical file for the device to obtain a market authorization for the device. Now the factory a factory, let's say in country X, will have a market authorization for their device. They can choose to have it distributed in the kingdom by 10, 15 distributors, or one. It is up to them. They don't have to have just one. They can have multiple distributors, but all those distributors must have an establishment license with us. As for classification, is an electronic system. They submit the document and the intended use and the operation manual and the intended use purpose, some files, automatic system, they upload it, and then based on the information provided, we decide whether this is a medical device that falls under directive or it's not a medical device.
Committee does that?
Yes,
Like
a
you
committee
have in-
does that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask you, Dr. Nazi, out of interest, for the registration fees, is it also online? You have some
Yes,
registration?
the
Yeah?
registration fee is also made
Online.
through what we call a SADAD system.
Okay. Yeah.
Once we receive the file, we evaluate it, and then we assign the fee for it, and then the company makes that payment, and then the file is processed.
Thank you very
All
much
electronic.
for this clarification, because it is important for some of the countries that you have a built-in fee so that you don't have any fiddling with money and that people coming to your offices.
No.
That is finished.
That is finished.
Finished. Yeah. We had a very good example also from Nigeria, a big country with loads of dossiers. They went online and all the offices are empty now, meaning not any more visitors. So that helps you, and then you can concentrate on your work. That is a very good principle also. I saw a hand here. Yes, please. Is there a micro? Yeah, you have. Okay. Please go ahead.
Ibrahim Salim, Roche Diagnostics. I have a question to Mrs. Kaur and Dr. Nazi regarding also the tariff code. We are really facing serious difficulties with some of the medical devices licensed and approved and MEDMA registered, and also MDIL is obtained, for example. It's completely registered in SFDA. However, as per the customs regulations, these kind of products are classified as restricted products that needs approval from other
Yes.
governmental bodies,
Security,
like security, like
Security
Ministry of Commerce.
yes.
So really, do we have some kind of harmonization between these different regulatory bodies within the same country
Okay.
to allow, facilitate the clearance?
Okay. That's. You had another question, or this is the only?
No, that's all.
Okay. So the question was some of the products coming through the borders have some substances or material that could be used in explosives or nuclear medicine products. So we are required to collaborate on these products with the Ministry of Interior through the Security Office. So the technical file comes to us, and we have a list of products. If the item is one of these products, we have to transfer. We do the technical evaluation, and we give our green light or red light for this product. Once we give the green light, we have to give it to the Security Office, and they do their own checking, and the license is issued from their side. Now, this, of course, when you introduce a third party in the middle, of course, the time will take longer. There is a committee now in discussion between us and the Security Forces Office to enhance this process because we recognize that there are some challenges in that area, especially when it comes to the concentration of some material. A certain substance might be an explosive, might be used in explosives. However, if the quantity is less or the concentration is small, it might be waived. But we are still in that debate, going back and forth. Hopefully, within a couple of weeks, things will improve, inshallah.
Joanna, you have maybe some.
I'll add the Singapore experience, very similar to what Doctor has mentioned. Our other agency is called the National Environment ENA authority, and they regulate all such products, including radiation products, and they also give the licenses. So what happens is when you have a product that is under both regulatory bodies, HSA will do the technical review and says that yes, in these areas it will do what it has intended purpose. And then we give it back to the NEA authority for them to allow the import and to issue the license, because they are in charge of the environment. You know, and in that sense, there is very close collaboration. If I may give you another example, we actually, before I came here, there was a query about some cardiac pacemakers that is now leadless. So it doesn't have any leads anymore. The pacemaker is actually implanted in the heart itself, and it will give these impulses to the heart muscle. In Singapore, if you pass away and you have a pacemaker, your pacemaker must be removed before you are cremated, because you know, most of our dear ones are cremated. So the company had asked for an exemption to this, because they have said that it will not explode. And because of that, I had read all about how to do cremation, you know, with my research, and they came to us to ask for an exemption. Fortunately, we are not in the cremation authority, so we passed it on to the NEA. You must know how to play this game, you know. So, well, and together we had a three-prong discussion with the company too. So eventually, you know, NEA will make the decision on this. So it's interesting. Yeah, we learn every day.
Yeah. Indeed, in all these new products and new setups, it is the advancement in technology comes also with other problems. I would like to see a bit of a reaction from other countries, but I would like to ask Oman, the colleagues from Oman. You're facing similar issues, what we just discussed? Can we have a mic, please?
Hello. Engineer Jamal Shamfri, Assistant Director General of Engineering Affairs, Sultanate of Oman, Ministry of Health. I think regarding the issues that we talked about, we have a lot of things in common. And most of the issues you've gone through, and even me and my colleague were talking about, 80% of them are really genuine, and we have gone through them. And I think for the GCC all over, we need to team up to get to the best practice in using medical devices, right? We have a lot of local policies that we have done, but we want to reach a level of international, right? And therefore, I think we are all of us here, and we thank you very much for this marvelous meeting and gathering. Full of expertise, and we are looking forward to share more experience with you guys. I think the program is great. Thank you very much for that. All right.
Thank you for your intervention, and good to hear that you mentioned also the GCC. Indeed, that is the network that we would like to see growing, the network that will lead the region in many, many areas under the leadership of Saudi FDA and other FDAs, that they work in a network. So that is very important, very powerful, and that is the way that the world is going to, including the European Union, that have the same principles, as you know. I have seen, I would like to give my colleague Adriana the floor, followed by you, sir. Is that okay?
Okay, thank you very much for all your very important talks. I have one question. One is about, I'll be a little bit provocative, because mostly the regulations have been initiated by high-income countries that have distributors, manufacturers, and everybody is there in the country. But now we're trying to initiate the development of regulations in countries where the manufacturers are not present, the distributors are not really authorized distributors, okay, where they're not authorized distributors in low-income countries, for example, and we have big problems with maintenance, with problems with really, there is the regulation of the product and the regulation of the establishment, no? And that is fine, just if they manufacture something. But what happens after? Like if there is no maintenance at all, not technical expertise, no anything. So that's one question. The second question is about all these areas like radiation. So radiation is one, and I think it is very important, and it's the link between the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Energy or Environment and others. And I think if we are initiating or we're supporting initiating new regulatory authorities, what should they have in mind? Because I think it is good to advise them from the very beginning. And the third issue that is very high, it's anything on remanufactured and reuse. And Joanna, you were just talking about pacemakers. We got a question in WHO, what if the pacemaker is removed from the dead body and then given to another person, no, or another country, because that's what they want to do. A lot of implantables, so prostheses and so, and pacemakers. So I think we need to see what is happening in low and middle income countries that would be very different from the regulations that were for high income countries. And what's your point of view? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. On the regulatory system for medical products and the regulatory or regulation of products in the country, the whole system of medical products coming to the market is an applicant-driven system. That's worldwide. So the applicant, being the manufacturer or the marketing authorization holder, whether it's pharma or whether it's medical devices, is applicant-driven. I know from Europe that many years ago the Norwegian government installed a so-called need clause. Didn't work. So they wanted only to license products which they thought were of added value to the public health. The solution which I'm aware of currently in Europe is that regulators and reimbursement institutions, whether it's a HTA or a health insurance, are now cooperating closer. And it has not only to do with maintenance, but has also to do with costing, because nowadays some of the pharmaceuticals coming to the market are so expensive that nobody can afford. And so manufacturers are complaining, we are developing a product which is not reimbursed. So in fact we have two ways of entering the market, the license for the product and the license to get reimbursed. So my answer would be is that a regulatory authority and the reimbursement authority should collaborate, because I think that's the only way forward, because I can't imagine that you change the system from an applicant-driven system to a need clause system. That would be a real change, but I don't think that's going to happen. Thank you.
May I take that one? I'll take the question on the comment on the pacemaker. Actually, in Singapore, when we remove the pacemaker before they are cremated, it's because pacemakers under very high heat explodes. So, you know, it's sort of, and there were occasions that we have read globally, that's why they have to be removed. It was claimed that for the leadless pacemaker, pacemakers are usually implanted, you know, not very far down the body, but with the leadless one, because it's in the heart, they need even a specialist to remove the heart. Yeah, so that was why the question came out. They are not reused once they are removed. Yeah, thank you.
Regarding your comments about what about maintenance, currently what we have done so far as regulators, and I think it's just mostly an international practice, that For regulators, it's easy for us to monitor the market, be at the borders, but once the device enters into a hospital, it becomes something, it's hard to go into another facility to monitor it. Although we have the power and the authority to go inside the hospital and inspect X-ray departments, whether they have proper shielding, they have quality systems, they have radiation safety officers, there is PPM being done, there is quality assurance program, and if the system is not proper, then we can shut down the X-ray department. One of the reasons in this conference, when we designed the program, was that going into the hospital requires collaboration from health institutes. Some of the health institutes, unfortunately, do not empower biomedical engineers, do not involve people with technical backgrounds on devices in committees that are deciding for devices. So you end up with only physicians looking at the clinical aspect of the device, approving it without looking into the technical aspect of the device. The device comes into the service, then the hospital gets into the trouble, then the biomedical engineer comes supposed to fix the work. It should happen from the beginning. Procurement laws need to put some restrictions on the importer and the distributor for commitment for providing spare parts for 3-4 years, to do some preliminary things a hospital needs to do before more than a regulator. We cannot, as regulators, say company X is better than company Y or company Z better. We have to stay at the upper level, and health institutes need to get involved. What we are doing now, we're trying to develop a guidance for medical device management practices, and we are hoping to collaborate with health institutes and health providers in engaging in these discussions and giving them hints on how they can adjust their procurement systems to help our program. For example, we still have hospitals in the kingdom who purchase devices that are do not have market authorization. And then when those devices come through the borders, we stop them. They cannot enter the country, and you have the director of the hospital calling us, telling us you're blocking our health system, and you're not supposed to buy a device that is not market authorized. How are you doing that? He says, I have no idea that you exist. So this is a challenge we are facing. Of course, this is coming less with time, and we're hoping that this conference will help us in getting more engagement with the health facilities in that direction.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nazi. I give the floor. You wanted to give an...
it's just a continuation.
Yeah, please go. And then we have another
absolutely.
colleague.
No, it's just, thank you first, Madam Chair. It's just a continuation of what Dr. Nazi mentioned. Just as an example of the maintenance after sales obligations. After sales obligation in some jurisdictions, not many, not common practice, but in Malaysia I know that the regulators there, they overlook and see the after sales obligation by the manufacturers. And this links to what Kamil said about the planned preventive maintenance. They go and investigate, and therefore it is considered part of their post-market activities. So yes, some jurisdictions do that, and some others don't. This also, as I mentioned in my presentation, also the not so common practice of waste disposal, overlooking how you got rid of the device. In some jurisdictions they do that, in others it's with the Ministry of Environment. So and maybe in José's model, these can fit into the a la carte expanded activities, the optional activities that you can add or not add based on your capacity and situation. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adam, and I give the floor to Dr. Fahad Mamar.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Fahad Al-Muammar. I'm from the industry associations and parts of you as in the industry. We have today 5 points. One of them is the harmonization of the inter-Arab and countries. I think today we see, even in the GCC countries, soon we will have no customs between us. How are we addressing this at an early stage with the Saudi FDA, so that in the future we have one regulation in the GCC and Pan-Arabs? This is a very important for trade and for harmonizing. The second thing is about national standards. in each country, and I know in Saudi Arabia now the responsibility of the standards in the medical devices and medicine and food is passed on to the SFDA. This is a unique thing. So I have not heard and seen that the product being imported has to comply with the national standards. So if it is not complying, even the paper is all okay, to my knowledge, because the standard is unenforceable, it should not enter.
Yes.
That makes knowledge, right? But nobody talked about it. I wanted just to make this clear. The costs and quality are associated, and Doctor spoke about it today. I wanted to say that it is not from a negative side point of view, because applying the right quality, of course, improves healthcare. And that is, in the end, it's cheaper for the system. So it is maybe in the device itself, it's cheaper, but on the long term, we avoid repeated procedures, for example. So this has to be clear, that we associate it with the capital expenditure, with capital increase and budget increase. The fourth one is the legislative, like in the SFDA. I wanted to say it improves the ground and attracts businessmen and companies to establish industries in the regulated industry, in regulated countries, wherein there is countries who has no regulations, companies avoid going into there and investing because it's not clear. So this is an encouragement to the countries who has not yet adapted or established regulators' rules to hurry up and do that, because this is, for us as business people, is important. So it's an encouragement also from the economical point of view. Last but not least, you spoke about jurisdiction in the hospitals. Regulations meant mainly patient safety. Patient safety is not only on the industries in their industry premises. We see hospitals from a long time, they have practices in the hospital falls under manufacturing.
Yes.
How is SFDA or regulators in general have the authority to go and apply the same rules as you apply it in the private sector on the hospitals, and demand from them the same procedures and same licensing? Because when it comes to patient safety, it doesn't matter the geographic area where it is being made. Thank you very much.
Yes, sure. Regarding the inter-Arab setup and the GCC setup to have harmonization between all of us, we really welcome any collaboration with anyone to work in that direction. I think what we are facing, and from what I see, is that I don't think we are at the same level of understanding for the importance of having regulations on medical devices. We still hear some people in decision-making roles in certain countries who say, why do we need that? We have technical committees that do health technology assessment, and they can just choose whatever device they choose, and that's sufficient. No need for medical device regulatory forum or body. So whatever you're doing in Saudi Arabia, okay, it's good, although it's an international practice, but we don't need it. We just assure that it is registered at SFDA or it's marketed in Europe, and if it's there, it's enough. But you'll be surprised to see how many people are claiming to be registered in SFDA, in the FDA, and that they have a CE mark when in reality they are not. Forged document, falsified claim is widely spread. We see it all the time. It is happening over and over by even large corporates and large-scale companies. You're not talking about startups or people who are just going to certain countries and buying things off the shelf and bring. No, we have major companies doing this, and they are under investigation. So hopefully, inshallah, with time, and one of the purposes of this meeting to have this harmony between all of us, to have unified regulations in that direction. Regarding the no custom law that is coming within GCC, it excludes medicine and medical devices. We will not allow any medical device or a drug entered to the country, even if it's coming from any GCC country, unless it is registered with us. We go through a very lengthy and tedious process in evaluating the technical files to assure the safety and the quality of the device that is coming into the country. And I don't think we will, unless if there are other countries within the region who are going to the same level of evaluation, we will be gladly to discuss and go into having mutual understanding where they accept our products and we accept their registration. That's, we welcome that. But without having any regulatory forum that this actually verifies whatever is being submitted is true or false, that's going to be difficult. And inshallah, with this meeting and with the closed discussions we will have after tomorrow, and maybe some initiatives in that direction will appear, inshallah. As for the applying the same safety rules on hospitals, يصير خير inshallah. It's happening inshallah. We're working on it. We believe that our mandate allows us to do that. But then we come to resources. Do we have enough resources to go around to inspect 300-400 hospitals? We are doing that in radiology departments. We have inspected over 400 health facilities last year, and we have shut down more than 20 to 30 X-ray departments because they have violated the quality standards and the quality measures we enforce in dealing with the radiology equipment. Inshallah, gradually we will push forward to do more.
Thank you very much for this elaborate explanation, Dr. Nazir. Jose, something on patient safety?
Well, patient safety is quite a subject, and I don't know whether the names or the titles of the book that were game changers about 15 years ago. There was a book called To Err is Human, and there was a book on patient safety, it was called, and there was a book on closing the quality chasm. And the three books were about patient safety, and they were published in the US, and it was the first time that someone published what's happening in healthcare and what's going wrong in healthcare. And there are many, and data since then indicate that approximately in 10% of the medical interventions there is a preventable error. And about, I don't know, at least in my country, 15 million people, 17 million, there are 2,000 people dying needlessly every year in hospital care alone. So if you could extrapolate that to your healthcare system, it's fairly the estimate which in the high-income countries is accepted. So the question is what to do, because even if you have a safe and effective medical device, it doesn't result always in safe and effective health care. But the systems are completely different, and I think, my colleague already mentioned that sometimes going to a hospital you meet a doctor who is only interested in an intervention without knowing anything about the specifications. I think using a medical device safely requires the maintenance, the context, the education, and so on. From a country like Colombia, they are now trying to promote patient safety by encouraging hospitals, and they have a number of hospitals where they contacted doctors and medical staff to report all kinds of adverse events to them, and not to blame, but to train, to raise the awareness of the need of proper training, of maintenance, of use, and so on. And from my own country, and we did inspect hospitals, and there was it was in the press, and that's something you don't want. If it's, once it comes in the press, it gets their own dynamic, and it's very difficult to manage. But we had problems with medical devices which were published in the press, and it raises the awareness also with the medical practitioners, and it resulted in guidelines for the use of certain medical devices with medical specialists. So they were not allowed to use some technologies unless they had some training. So the message would be to link the product safety to the patient safety by reaching out to the medical profession. Thank you.
Thank you, José. I think this is a fantastic discussion, and we have reached 3:30 bezapt, so we have to see that we take it from here. We have 30 minutes, up to 4.
So 3:55 we return.
3:55 bezapt. We come back here. 3h55 pile, and 3:55 sharp. Please come so that we can end in time, and you have also some time for the afternoon. Thank you so much.